Hello and welcome guys to another video. Today the subject is my E46 BMW drift car and we're doing something a little bit fun. Now what I have in store today for this car is making my own custom cold air intake. If you have a look online, the prices are ridiculous, and to combat that we'll be making our own. Now stay tuned for the end of the video because I'm going to give you the exact cost breakdown of what it costs to build this. Now to make this intake we're going to need very few parts. Got this sheet of 2mm thick steel that I got from my local shop for about 20 bucks. Just go in, ask for an offcut, make sure it's big enough, just measure up. I can't remember the measurements, otherwise I would tell you. But yeah, just 2mm thick steel, and then we're gonna make the template out of cardboard, and then cut it out, and hopefully everything goes to plan. Alright, so step number one to get this custom cold air intake to fit is to make a template out of cardboard. So I've got a piece of cardboard, a knife, taking my air filter off, so hopefully this will go smoothly. That's right, now I'm just trying to match the angle of this weld here where the seam sealer is, because that's where I want the intake to sit against. So I'll just bend the cardboard up a bit. You know what? I'm just going to cut it up and tape it together later. Alright, so after some measuring and cutting of our cardboard template, this is what we've got. It's just going to be a box like that sits there. Still exposed the alternator, but most of the heat from the engine shouldn't be coming in anymore. And hopefully it actually does something, or at least sounds cool. I'll take either. Alright, so we've got our template tressed onto our steel. Also got the boys chilling.
Got arthritis. Ah.
So now we're just going to cut this out. I still got to get a more precise measurement of when you need to cut the hole for the... Still need to get a more precise measurement of when you need to cut the hole to fit the mass airflow sensor. And where to bend it. But otherwise, this should be pretty much good to go. Alright, got myself a fresh cut-off wheel on my angle grinder. I'm going to cut this out and figure out a way to bend it and then fit it to the car, and hopefully everything goes to plan. Now here I am cutting out this piece with the angle grinder, being very careful not to cut through the piece of MDF that's underneath and damage my floor. Yes, I'm not wearing safety glasses or any other sort of PPE. Don't roast me in the comments, I couldn't find any. Overall, the only difficult part to cut out was that curve you see me cutting now, but after that was done, it was really smooth sailing. Look at that! Here it is, we've got it cut out. I made a few mistakes in some spaces, as you can see there, but I'm pretty happy with this. The mistakes shouldn't matter too much because I can clean them up with the grinding wheel, and then we've also got some boot trim to go on top of the sharp metal edges to protect the car and to keep as much hot air out of the engine as possible. So I got a bit carried away and forgot to film, but look at that. It's all bent up. Basically I used kind of like a sandwich system because I don't have a proper metal bender, so I'll come over here and show you. I put two pieces of MDF on top of my wheel, sandwiched the plate in between them and stood on it. That seemed to have worked for me pretty well because I just test fitted it to the car and it looks excellent. It looks great. So all that's left to do is to clean up the edges, give it a clean, give it a bit of paint, put some boot trim onto it so it doesn't scratch anything inside the car, and we should be good to go. I just used some boot trim to put around the edges to protect my paintwork and to seal against the bonnet here so not let hot air get in. Last step I got left to do is to cut a hole for the MAF and then paint it, and we should be good to go. What do you reckon?
Looks pretty legit. Should definitely make some cold air.
Thoughts?
I'm gonna shit myself. Yep.
Not bad?
Good enough.
Good enough? As often is the case, whenever I do anything to my cars, nothing went to plan. As you can see though, we do have a hole. It's a bit rough, because what I had to do was spot drill a hole every couple of mil, and then cut everything out with a jigsaw, because my hole saw was made of butter and it just would not go through, even though it says it's made for steel. Either way, we got there in the end. I'm going to clean this up a little bit with the Dremel and we should be able to install it in the car very shortly. Alright guys, it's the next day now. The weather outside, as you can probably see, is still fucking miserable, but it's okay, we'll push forward. What we've got left is to just clean up some of the edges on the outside where I cut this piece out, then scuff it up a bit and give it a paint job. And then it's ready to be mounted in the car. I'm very excited. However, all the moisture just in the garage already started causing a little bit of surface rust. Not sure if you can see that, but after a paint job, it should be all sweet. Alright, now that the edges are no longer sharp, I'm going to give this a quick scuff with some sandpaper, get it painted, and then we can put it in the car for the final time and see how it looks. Now to paint this, I'm using an old bike repair stand that I just hang up the piece with a metal wire, and then I'm going around and overlapping motion, giving this a nice good paint job. Alright, so we got the black base coat on. It's still a bit wet, just gotta wait for it to dry. And then we'll add a special effect to it. Now I got this off Mike Lake's YouTube channel, who's also got a Beamer, which is really cool. This is Duramax glitter. Duramax glitter effect. I love the way it looks. It comes out sick, and you choose how sparkly you want it. And you know, it's still gonna be black, but it's gonna have that touch of flavor. Alright, she's painted. Doesn't look the best. The clear didn't come out as well as I wanted it to. That's probably something to do with the paint I used, because the paint is pretty shit. But all the trims are back on. It's black. It's going to match the rest of the car. Let's go slap it in. I'll show you how it goes in. So the way this piece fits in is you've got a mount right here that'll go into that hole there. And then you kind of just slot it in. Being careful of all the other parts in the engine bay. And it just drops into place, kind of like that. And then you've got your MAF in that hole. There we go. So there we go. It fits kind of like this. And then it gets secured down on the mount here, and the MAF goes there. So let me get the intake, the rest of the intake, and we'll put it all together. The rest of the intake is made up of 3 parts: the filter, a little elbow, and the silicone joiner. And I'll show you how it all goes together. So first, we get the silicone joiner, and we put it through the hole we made in our shield, and over the MAF, just like that. Now if I was running any sort of boost, which unfortunately at the moment I'm not, I would be using a hose clamp around the MAF, but it's a very snug fit, and because we're not running any pressure, it should be fine. So next, we get this metal elbow, and that just slots in right there. But for the metal elbow, I am using a hose clamp. So I'm gonna slap the hose clamp over our silicone joiner, and then press fit this metal piece in and leave it loose for now. And then lastly goes on our filter. Filter is a bit tricky to get on because there's not as much space where the headlight is. But if you just angle it a certain way and twist it and spin it, it should align, and there we go. So now I can make any sort of corrections I need to that steel piece. There we go. That's how she'll sit. Not bad. Now that the air filter and the pipe, all these hose clamps are tight, last step is this little bolt that holds the heat shield to the car. It's just a 10mm that a random one I found. Give it a quick paint job to make it look a bit prettier. Throw it in by hand a little bit, and the rest can be done with our little tool. And there we go. She's pretty secure in there. It wobbles a little bit, but I'm not worried about it. This is the final result. Have a look at that. So majority of the work is done, and luckily, because it's just starting to rain again, I'm pretty happy with the finished product. We've got one last important step. We got to hear how it sounds. I'm just going to set you up on the tripod, start the car, and give it a few revs. That induction noise. Now I think that sounds pretty good, and either way it should help keep some of that hot air out. And you may be thinking, there's no lid on it, so how does it work? So with these boot trim, it's just tall enough to seal nicely against the boot, against the bonnet here. So when the bonnet's closed, it acts as a lid. And where the place it's getting the cold air from is just down there. There's a little, and the place where it's getting the cold air from is just there under the car. The black trim, the under tray, is missing there. I took it out on purpose so that cold air can get up from under the car and into the filter. Now what have I learned during this process, and what would I do differently? One thing I learned is that it is very easy to make a custom part yourself all the way from scratch, just if you take your time to measure and mock everything up. And the thing I would do differently is I would make it out of aluminium, because it'll be a lot easier to work with and it'll bend much nicer and look a lot cleaner inside the engine bay. So in the next coming weeks, I will be doing an M50 manifold conversion on my M52, in which case we might need to remake this cold air intake. In which case I will definitely be making it out of aluminum. Now you may be wondering, what did it cost me? So the sheet of steel, which was much bigger than I needed, just to be safe, cost me $20. And the boot trim cost me $10. So for $30, and using some of the tools I already had in my garage, I managed to make myself a nice little heat shield to act as a cold air intake, and in the process, saving myself hundreds. Because the cheapest cold air intake I could find that looks similar to what I made is about 300 Australian dollars, which to me is just ridiculous when you can make it for 10 times less. Either way guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, share and comment. Let me know what you want to see next involving the BMW. I am planning on taking you drifting in June. Let me know if you want to see a video from that day of all the boys and I running tandems. Thanks guys, I'll see you later.